I stood in my childhood bedroom, the one with the faded blue wallpaper and the creaky floorboard by the window. My hands trembled as I held the letter, the one I'd been dreaming of since I was a kid sneaking nature documentaries under my covers. It was from the Pacific Marine Research Institute in Hawaii, an offer to join their team studying coral reef ecosystems. My heart was doing cartwheels, but the voices downstairs were like a lead weight pulling me back to earth. My parents, Ellen and Richard, were in the kitchen, their words sharp and unyielding. "Elena, you can't just up and leave," my mom said, her voice tight with that familiar mix of guilt and control. "Michael needs us right now. He's so close to getting his startup off the ground." My dad chimed in, his tone softer, but no less firm. "You've got to think about family, Elena. There'll be other jobs." I wanted to scream. Other jobs? This wasn't just a job. It was my dream, the thing I'd worked for through late nights in college. Scraping by on scholarships while Michael parted his way through life, always the golden child. I was 23 then, fresh out of grad school, and I'd spent my whole life being the good daughter, the one who never made waves, who always put family first. But this felt like they were asking me to set fire to my future so Michael could chase his. I sat on my bed, the letter crinkling in my hands, and stared at the photo on my nightstand. Me, Michael, and our parents at my high school graduation. I was smiling, but I remembered how I'd overheard them that night, whispering about how Michael's football scholarship was their real pride. I was just expected to be fine, always fine. I read the letter again, memorizing every word, the start date, the salary, the promise of field work in the ocean. My chest ached with want, but the guilt was a vice grip. If I said yes, I'd be abandoning them. If I said no, I'd be abandoning myself. I closed my eyes and saw myself diving into turquoise waters, free, alive. Then I heard my mom's voice again, louder this time, calling me downstairs. My stomach twisted. I folded the letter and tucked it into my drawer, promising myself I'd find a way to keep it alive. But as I walked downstairs, I felt the weight of their expectations settling on my shoulders, heavier than ever. I sat at the kitchen table, my parents across from me, their faces a mix of hope and demand. Michael wasn't even there, he was. Probably out with his friends, oblivious to the sacrifice they were asking of me. "We've been talking," my dad started, his hands clasped like he was about to deliver a sermon. "There's a job opening at the insurance office downtown. It's stable, good benefits. You could start next week." I stared at him, my throat tight. "But the institute, it's what I've always wanted." My mom's eyes narrowed. "Elena, don't be selfish. Michael's got a real shot at something big. He just needs a little help with rent, maybe some startup costs. You're smart. You'll find another chance." Her words stung like they always did, but this time they cut deeper. Selfish? I'd spent my life bending over backward for them. For Michael. I wanted to tell them how I'd stayed up late helping him with his college applications while finishing my own. How I'd worked summer jobs to help with his car payments when he crashed his first one. But I didn't. I just nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "Okay, I'll think about it." That night, I lay awake, the letter burning a hole in my mind. I couldn't do it. I couldn't let them take this from me. But saying no felt impossible, like betraying the only family I had. I got up, pulled the letter out, and read it again under the dim glow of my phone. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not just for the job, but for the girl who'd always said yes, who'd always put herself last. As the tears fell, a spark of something new flickered inside me, anger, maybe, or defiance. I didn't know it then, but that spark was about to change everything. The next morning, I woke up with a headache, my eyes puffy from crying. The letter was still on my nightstand, taunting me. I hid it back in the drawer before my mom could see it. She had a way of sniffing out anything I cared about too much. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled like coffee and tension. My parents were already at the table, talking in low voices about Michael's latest pitch to some investor. I poured myself a cup, trying to act normal, but my hands shook. "Morning," I said, forcing a smile. My dad looked up, his face softening for a second before it hardened again. "Did you call the insurance office yet?" he asked, like it was a done deal. I swallowed hard, the coffee burning my throat. "Not yet. I'm still thinking." My mom sighed, loud and dramatic. "Elena, we don't have time for this. Michael's meeting with those investors next week. He needs to focus, not worry, about money." I wanted to snap back, to ask why Michael couldn't get a job like I always had, but I bit my tongue. It was the same old dance me stepping aside so Michael could shine. I mumbled something about calling later and escaped too. The backyard, the grass damp under my bare feet. I sat on the old swing set, the one Michael and I used to fight over when we were kids. Back then, I let him win, even when it meant I got stuck pushing him for hours. I closed my eyes, picturing Hawaii, the ocean, the reefs, the life I could have. But every time I got close to saying yes to the job, I heard my mom's voice calling me selfish. The rest of the day was a blur. I called the insurance office, set up an interview, and felt my heart sink with every word. By evening, I was back in my room, staring at the ceiling, when Michael burst in without knocking. "Hey sis, you got a sec?" he asked, all charm and ease, like nothing was wrong. He flopped onto my bed, his sneakers leaving dirt on my quilt. "Mom says you're getting a job downtown." "That's awesome, you're like saving my life here." I stared at him, my chest tight. He didn't even know about Hawaii, didn't know what I was giving up. "Yeah," I said, my voice flat, "no problem." He grinned, oblivious, and started talking about his startup, some app that sounded like every other app he'd tried and failed to launch. I tuned him out, my mind drifting to a memory from when I was 12. I'd won a science fair, my project on coral bleaching earning first place. I'd been so proud, clutching my ribbon, but when I showed my parents, they were too busy cheering. Michael's touchdown at his game. That night, I cried myself to sleep, promising I'd never let them make me feel small again. But here I was, 23, still letting them. Michael left, still talking, and I pulled out the letter again. My fingers traced the words, Pacific Marine Research Institute. I could feel the pull of it, like a tide dragging me out to sea. But then my phone buzzed a text from my mom. "Insurance job starts Monday. Don't let us down." I felt like I was drowning. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't say yes to Hawaii yet, not without a fight. I started looking for ways to compromise, maybe a part-time job that could still help Michael, but let me chase my dream. I spent hours online, searching for remote marine biology work, anything that could keep my parents off my back. But every listing felt like a betrayal of the life I wanted. By 2 a.m., I was exhausted, my laptop glowing in the dark. I was about to give up when I saw an old journal on my shelf, one I kept in high school. I flipped it open, and a photo. "Fell out me, Michael, and our parents at a picnic when I was 10. We looked happy, but something about the photo felt off. Michael's smile was too wide, my parents' hands on his shoulders too tight. I shook it off, blaming my tired brain, but that photo planted a seed of doubt I couldn't ignore. It was the first crack in the story I'd always believed about. My family. That photo stayed with me all night, like a splinter I couldn't pull out. I kept turning it over in my hands, trying to pinpoint why it felt wrong. It was just a picnic me with my pigtails, Michael with his gap-toothed grin, my parents beaming like we were the perfect family. But the more I stared, the more I noticed how their eyes were always on him, never me. I shoved the photo back in the journal and tried to sleep, but my mind was racing. By morning, I was a mess, running on fumes and coffee. I had to be at the insurance office for my interview in a few hours, and the thought made my stomach churn. I pulled on a blazer that felt like someone else's skin and stood in front of the mirror, practicing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I could still hear the ocean in my head calling me to Hawaii, but it was drowned out by my parents' voices, by Michael's careless laugh. Downstairs, my mom was making breakfast, humming like everything was fine. "You'll do great today," she said, sliding a plate of eggs toward me. "This job's a good start, Elena. Stable, you'll see." I nodded, my throat too tight to argue. I wanted to tell her about the letter, about the reefs I could be saving, but I knew she'd just repeat the same line about family coming first. After breakfast, I grabbed my bag and headed out, the letter still hidden in my drawer like a secret I was afraid to touch. The interview was a blursome guy in a cheap suit asking me about my long-term goals while I fought the urge to scream that my real goal was 4,000 miles away. I got the job on the spot, of course. They didn't care about my passion for marine biology. They just needed someone to file claims and answer phones. I left the office feeling like I'd signed away my soul. On the bus ride home, I stared out the window, watching the world blur by. I thought about the first time I'd seen the ocean on a family trip when I was 8. I'd stood at the edge of the water, mesmerized by the waves, promising myself I'd spend my life understanding them. Michael had been there too, splashing around, stealing the spotlight as usual. I'd let him even then. When I got home, my parents were waiting, all smiles. "How'd it go?" My dad asked like he already knew. "I got it," I said, my voice hollow. They hugged me proud, but it felt like they were celebrating my surrender. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about that photo, about the way my parents always chose Michael. I got up and started digging through old boxes in my closet, looking for answers I didn't even know I needed. That's when I found it, a stack of letters tucked inside a shoebox, ones my mom had written to someone years ago. They were vague, full of phrases like, "We're so grateful," and "He's brought us so much joy." I realized they were about Michael, but they didn't sound like they were written to a family member. They sounded formal. My heart pounded as I read one that mentioned the agency. What agency? I sat there, surrounded by dust and memories, feeling like the ground was shifting under me. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to find out the truth, even if it broke me. I slipped the letters back into the box, my hands shaking, and made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to let them bury my dreams without a fight. The insurance office smelled like stale coffee and printer ink, and every day I spent there felt like a slow death. I'd been at the job for 2 weeks, filing claims, answering phones, smiling at people I didn't care about. My cubicle was a gray cage, and every time I looked at the clock, I could feel the ocean slipping further away. At night, I'd come home exhausted, my parents' voices blending into a hum of approval. "You're doing the right thing, Elena," my mom would say, her hand on my shoulder like I'd won some kind of medal for giving up. But those letters I'd found in the shoebox haunted me. I hadn't touched them again since that night, too. Scared of what they might mean, but they were always there, whispering questions I wasn't ready to answer. I kept the Hawaii letter in my purse now, a secret rebellion I carried with me. Sometimes during lunch breaks, I'd pull it out and read it, letting the words transport me to a place where I wasn't just Michael's sister or my parents' backup plan. One day, I was sitting in the office break room, the letter in my hands, when a coworker, Jenny, noticed. "What's that?" she asked, peering over her sandwich. I stuffed it back in my purse, my cheeks burning. "Nothing, just a bill." She raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Jenny was nice enough, but I didn't trust anyone with my dream knot yet. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the shoebox I pulled from the closet again. My hands hovered over it, my heart pounding like I was about to open Pandora's box. I finally lifted the lid and started reading the letters again. They were addressed to someone named Margaret, someone my mom thanked over and over for giving us. Michael. The words hit me like a punch. Giving us Michael? What did that mean? I thought back to every family story I'd been told, how Michael was born just 2 years before me, how my parents always said he was their miracle. But these letters didn't sound like they were about a miracle. They sounded like a transaction. My stomach twisted and I shoved the letters back, my breath coming too fast. I wanted to confront my parents, to demand answers, but the thought of their faces, guilty, angry, or worse, dismissive, stopped me cold. Instead, I went online, searching for anything that could explain it. I typed adoption agencies and Margaret into Google, but nothing came up that made sense. I was about to give up when I saw an ad for a DNA test kit, one of those ancestry things that promise to uncover your family history. My heart skipped. Maybe this was the way to get answers without tearing everything apart. I ordered one using my credit card and praying my parents wouldn't notice the charge. The next day, I was back at work, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept replaying memories of Michael, how he always got the bigger slice of cake, the louder cheers, the benefit of every doubt. I remembered when I was 15, staying up late to help him study for a math test he'd failed twice already. I'd been so proud when he passed, but he never even thanked me. He just ran to my parents, soaking up their praise. I'd smiled through it, like always, but now those moments felt like bricks piling up in my chest. By the time I got home, I was ready to explode. I found my mom in the living room, flipping through a magazine. Why do you always put him first? I blurted out, my voice louder than I meant. She looked up, startled. What are you talking about, Elena? I took a breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Michael, it's always about him. His dreams, his needs. What about me? Her face softened, but there was something guarded. In her eyes, you're both our kids. We love you equally. I wanted to believe her, but the letters burned in my mind. It doesn't feel equal, I said, my voice cracking. She stood, reaching for me, but I stepped back. Elena, you're being dramatic. Michael just needs more help right now. I turned away, tears stinging my eyes. I couldn't tell her about the letters, not yet. But as I climbed the stairs to my room, I felt a shift inside me. I wasn't just the good daughter anymore. I was someone with questions, someone who deserved answers.